Hey, can you hear me?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I got my Hacktoberfest shirt yesterday. This is very fancy. It's like this like sparkles. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Which README did you update?
All the typos. Hey, that's why I added the Hacktoberfest label to Gatekeeper so I can get the shirt.
I still have the red one from a long time ago.
Yeah. I look forward to this every year.
Max, I don't think we can hear you.
What did you do last time, Miss?
Chromebooks, right? Nope, can't hear you.
I blame Chromebooks or book.
The webcam.
We can hear you now. Oh. Can't now. It was when you said webcam, we could hear it. Does that help with the debugging? Good. We can hear you now. Gone? It's gone now. For a very short period of time, we could hear you.
Try this. Do.
We can hear you now. Gone now. Journey. No.
If you're watching the recording, this is super boring, I guess.
Fast forward. For those that are watching at home,
Fast forward below. Oh
don't forget to like and subscribe.
my goodness. We did hear you, Max, for like a brief 10 seconds.
I think it's frozen. Oh no, it's very still. You want to dial from your phone?
Can he hear us? Or-
I don't know. I'll create the agenda. We don't have anything in the agenda actually. If anybody wants to talk about something, please put it on the agenda.
Do we want to revisit the mapping thing
Mapping?
for constraint per process we signed off?
Oh, I don't know if there's any additions. I have not looked at it. I don't know if others have.
No.
But we can talk about it, I guess, if there's time. So,
Hello.
hello.
I
Can
do
you-
not get how audio has become an impossible task. Sorry, I am like exceedingly annoyed that this has become a ritual for me. Anyway, how is everyone?
Doing okay? This is what the YouTube channel watchers want to see, the struggles of Max to mix this audio.
You try every combination of unplugging things, replugging things. I don't know. Maybe I need to try a different audio interface or something.
Cool. Should we get started? I think first one is Jaded with the pop set.
Yes, so since last time I looked deeply into how Dapper is planning to implement batching process, and so essentially what it is planning to do is I think Max commented on the PR with the same as well. Like if underlying component uses or supports batching, then it will use that native implementation. Otherwise, there are two options. But essentially, if the underlying component doesn't support the batching, then Dapper will just send out each message individually with an option to either send them parallelly or send them serially. So that's the full extent of batching on a higher level that Dapper is going to implement or is coming out with. So based on that, there are two questions, like, do we rely on individual PubSub components batching and do not have an interface of our own? Or if we do, then how do we make sure that we provide batching for the components that do not natively support it? Or we just don't support any component that doesn't support batching at all?
Well, I think it's probably possible just to copy the same pattern that Dapper is doing, right? Like, and so for the case of Dapper, you provide a batch send call or whatever the function is, and it just gets wired straight through. Same thing for other drivers that support batching in some way, right? And then for drivers that don't, you do the loop thing. I think the interesting thing about the batching for me is to one, know that listeners and senders are allowed to choose different batch granularities, right, at the protocol level. Which means that we wouldn't be able to replicate the same functionality by like hard coding some sort of batch schema. And also that it appears that the batch size is the responsibility of the caller for Dapper, right? That Dapper's not trying to do something smart there, which is honestly probably wise. Yeah, and those two things shape, one, whether it's necessary, and two, how we would be likely to be compatible with other projects if we were to do batching. Anyway, so I think yes, and I think just use the same method personally.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just organizing my thoughts, but yeah, so then for other, so then there will be two sets of, I don't understand this. Say we implement the same thing Dapper is doing, right?
Mhm.
And then if somebody is using Dapper, then how?
Right. So maybe I misspoke with, well, no, I partially misspoke with we. So the idea would be we're defining two interfaces for ourselves, right? We're defining the interface we're exposing to Gatekeeper, right? These sorts of functions we're using when publishing a message. And we're also defining the interface that we expect. I'm going to call it drivers just because I've been using that word for forever, but the interface of the driver, which is the interface that we expect anyone who wants to hook into Gatekeeper with a pub sub thing, what they would need to build out to satisfy, right? And there are two options for that, I think. One is to say, if you are a driver, you need to support the send one message call, send batched messages call. I wouldn't necessarily call them that, but you know.
Yeah.
And then we provide guidance to driver authors like, so if you do not support sending batched messages, just write a function that does that. or that receives the batch messages and loops over it and does your internal send one message call and just put it all on the driver. Another option would be to have the driver signal whether it supports sending batched messages. You might be able to do this with interface switching, and detection, or you could just require them to publish some like capabilities string, and based off of that, handle the iteration for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think kind of offloading it to the driver author makes the
Yeah.
most sense because it's simpler and leaves more flexibility for the driver author to do what they want.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So for just to reiterate and understand that my interpretation was correct, I'm gonna summarize what you just said, right? So for the interface thing, introduce new things, additional things that will define what is expected of driver authors, and have two methods instead of one, a publish and a publish batch kind of a thing, where if natively batching is supported, use that. Otherwise, just replicate the same functionality of parallelly or serially calling individual or publishing individual messages. Right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, I think then that's next actionable item for me to work on that one. And see if I have any more doubts or questions.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing to think about would be maybe driver configurability. Like, I'm
Yeah,
kind of tempted to just say, let them define their own command line flags, because they
yeah,
could do that and parse them on startup, and we basically don't need to do anything to let that function.
So I was alongside digging into, I was also trying to configure at least like Dapper and RabbitMQ with the gatekeeper on my own to understand what is needed in terms of configurability and what differs from one tool to other.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm gonna update the PR with the changes I made to like have it in visual, that maybe this some like the configuration ideas that I have can work or not. So
Yeah, the one problem I can think of with the flag idea is if you have multiple instances of the same driver, right? Like you have two RabbitMQ endpoints, so you want two instances of the same thing. However, at that point, you probably are wanting to send different messages to different queues. Which means we're probably in a state where we're looking at the enforcement action side of the problem. And at that point, you can probably leverage the existence of K8s resources or something to do the config. So I don't know if it's then a problem that we have this legacy config that works for the bulk publish all messages everywhere kind of thing. That uses flags, and you can only have one RabbitMQ driver versus this other model where you have two. Like thinking through that, like future discrepancy, and seeing if there's an option that avoids that is probably worthwhile.
maybe we can use config map as well, like per tool config map, where we describe that these are the configurable options for every tool. And if you want to use particular tool, you just create one config map related to it with your configurations. You're muted, Max. You are muted.
Sorry, that time it was my cat. That was not a technical error. So yeah, that makes, like, we could just use K8s stored config for like all of it. Config map versus CRD.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think at the minimum, we would need a way to specify which config maps are specifically of interest for this. And also there might be secrets involved, right? Depending, like passwords or some sort of public key or private key, sorry, something like that. But yeah, something like that. Config maps and secrets might be good, because otherwise if you try to do CRDs, then you fall into the how do I establish the watch concern, which for a custom driver seems hard.
Yeah, okay, cool. Then I have two actionable items. One is to improve on the interface, and one is to figure out the configurability part as well. Yeah, I think I have enough for now till next week to look at.
Cool. Thank you for taking a look at all this.
When you get a chance, can you also add the PubSub doc to design docs? I opened an issue just so you don't forget about it. I tagged you. You'll see it in the
Oh, okay, cool. Cool, perfect. Thanks.
We don't have any other topics. Do we want to talk about the per process, the enforcement actions one? I don't think there's anything new there. It would be like a free discussion basically.
Yeah,
Unless there are any topics.
see. Anything worth? No one's filled out anything on the schedule. And we could talk. I honestly haven't put more thoughts into it. I could give a status update on the cell cap real quick. If
Oh, I think that'd be great. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So the rebase for controller runtime seems to have been able to get us on the right K8s version. It turns out there's still some variables that are private, particularly the decisions that are rendered. You cannot access those in the current version of the K8s code, which seems important. So there's a PR out to fix that on the K8s end, which should happen, which looks like it's on track to merge. I don't know when the deadlines are, but if you're interested, there are a few kept changes out that people are commenting on. I believe the cutoff for having a change pending was a few days ago. And then there's a review deadline coming up. And I've been attacked by a monster. No. She's starting to want to scratch my monitor. Anyway, that's the update.
Was there any updates worth highlighting that you think we should?
Sweetie, you're gonna fall, then you're gonna be sad.
Max? I don't think he can hear me.
Max, can you hear us? Nope. I think the cat is on the
He's
mute.
any
Cat is sabotaging the meeting.
Oh no. I can see.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Okay. Okay. My audio got muted. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what we thought. Yeah, I think the cat is sabotaging you. Probably mess with the audio setup too.
Yeah.
Rita had a question.
Oh, yes. What was your question?
I said, was there anything you want to highlight from the CAP update that you think could impact Gatekeeper project?
Yeah, well, the one I authored is about custom matchers, which we would need to be able to support something like kind matching in embedded K8s, because they don't want they want to match on resource, not kind. Uh,
Oh,
the other one, okay, Mac, that's enough, sweetie. The other one would be that Joe has a change to add enforcement action, essentially. Like right now, it's hard coded to deny,
right.
and we obviously want other options. And the risk there was basically there was some push originally to put the enforcement action on what to us would be the template, the constraint template, and that doesn't quite make sense in terms of this reprojection stuff, because then essentially you'd need 3 copies of the template in order to support the various enforcement actions of like deny, warn, and well, I suppose no action. You would just not create anything.
Okay, this is already merged or is still work in progress?
These still have comments on them. All of them are looking good as of last night in terms of there's no like objection or design trend that is gonna hurt the usability, but they're definitely salient.
Okay, so I should spend some time reviewing those PRs today, is what I'm hearing.
I think so. Like, if you're interested, if not,
Oh, I want to make sure it doesn't like end up like going too different from what we already have, right? Like that was sort of the hope, right? But it
yeah,
sounds like it is already the case.
what is already the case that it's too different?
Oh, like for example, the what did you say? The match kind on the resource instead of the kind. That's
Oh, that yeah, that has been different for forever. But they're what we want is just the ability to write custom cell code that takes the place of a matcher. And then we don't really need to worry about that again, as long as our matchers are expressible in cell. And they should be, because matchers should have relatively simple logic. There's no matcher we have currently that I think is a risk there.
okay.
And then the other one is, as I said, currently in alignment. I am watching for it to diverge. If you also want to watch and lend your voice, that's definitely helpful. But I also like don't want to like overload you if you're like,
Yeah,
I
makes sense.
have too many things to look at today. Yeah.
Okay, and also there's a lot of caps that's like in progress, but it's not targeted for 127. Doesn't look like for example, the mutating emission stuff. I'm guessing that's not gonna happen this round, right? So, and it's a work in progress. So
Yeah, I did that didn't get filed as a cap yet, right?
it is I mean, it's a cap, but it's a work in progress cap.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and anything that goes in the enhancement PR is basically like should be a cap-ish.
I didn't realize that got filed as work in progress. There, I've been pushing for them to think about basically the convergence problem. Um, I I would like, even if their stance is we don't care, because we think that the user should be responsible for this. Um, I would like that to be explicit. Um, Yeah, so I'm curious what the state of the actual thing is. Do you have a link for it by any chance?
Sure. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I know this was happening, but because I see work in progress, I just didn't think it's like ready for review yet.
Yeah, for sure. It was the last I saw it was in early stages, but I also thought it was still just a Google Doc.
Mhm. Okay, I'll try to carve some time for these type of things. Like for example, define GA graduation criteria. That's not for 127 for sure. So it's just kind of hard to tell which one is now.
Right. I think I've got buy-in that mutation is a separate problem from validation.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense. Okay, so information. What is this? Add message expression, adjust for inclusion of string format in cell. Cell emission. I know this one is being reviewed right now, right? Add graceful rollout warning and auto support.
yeah, that's that one I was talking about with enforcement action.
Makes sense. Okay, and then the match conditions. That one is in 127 already.
Match
Supporting custom match criteria. This is from December. You opened
Yeah,
this.
that's mine. That's the one.
Is that target for 127?
It should be targeted for the next version, whatever version we're on.
127.
Okay.
You have a lot of caps open still, yeah. Add expressions. Hmm. $34.88. Okay, so anything that has 34.88 really is what we should be looking at, is what I'm
For
guessing.
the cell cap, yeah, and I think there's just two. There is also a sibling cap, though, that Tim Allclair wrote that is basically taking the custom criteria type design and applying it to validating webhook configurations as well, right? And we're trying to use the same syntax with whatever comments get on whichever cap. And that could be useful for right now. Webhooks can only exclude it like namespace granularity and maybe object selector or namespace selector. But this would be, you could put a cell statement in that basically excludes whatever objects match or don't match that cell statement from a webhook, which would give us much finer granularity. So we don't just need to, we wouldn't just only be able to exclude, say, cube system. We could also say these 5 config maps or whatever are critical. Do not touch them.
Okay. It's funny, the only cap that is targeted for 127 is the one that Tim opened for the webhook match condition, like the predicate one.
Wait, the only cap of the 3 or?
Like if you look, none of the cell one has a milestone on it. I'm just letting you know, like you might want to tell Joe. Because in theory, anything that you want to merge for the cap, you should have the 127 milestone on it. This is how people keep track of things.
I'll let him know. These are changes to an existing cap. I don't know if that alters things.
It does if you're moving them, if you are changing the graduation, sorry, the milestone, sorry, the like for moving from alpha to beta or beta to GA. That's when it matters, I guess.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the lack of milestone basically is a lack of saying we believe this will be in beta at this point, not a we believe this thing will be implemented as of this version. This thing meaning the whatever adjustment to the behavior.
So I found one that has a milestone on it that got merged. This is the update on resource constraints.
Right. Anyway, I'm sure Joe and Cecilia know how to do all this. So yeah.
This is the only one that's 3488 that was 127.
3488, 127. These are just a lot of numbers. Oh, the cap, not the PR.
Yeah,
number.
the cap 3488, and then the rest of them have one at 26. This is the only one that's merged. That's 127.
Yeah, I'll ask. Joe and CC definitely have more process state, and you do as well, Rita, than I do. So I'll forward the question along.
Is there a board for this next?
There is a sheet that's breaking out the work. Let me see if I can't find the link for y'all. I think it's public.
Is there any plan to which version is it going to go to beta in?
I don't think this next version.
Okay, got it.
But
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it doesn't have the mouse. I just assumed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're looking to get some like real world feedback, and these are certainly two critical pieces that are missing.
Makes sense. Okay, super.
Cool. And I linked the sheet in
Thank
chat.
you.
Oh, I see. This is super helpful. Thank you.
Oh, it even says, oh, and there's a 128 as well. There's tabs for the various release
Oh,
targets.
yeah. Then I don't know what some of these are, but they may be lacking the milestone then, if they are meant for 127.
Yeah.
Also,
So
if you want to go to GA in 128, I'm guessing 127 is where you need to bump to beta. So I don't know. And then when you do any like bump in of any kind, this is I think where you need PRR review. And PRR review, the deadline is like tomorrow or Friday. Something like that.
Yeah, I don't see a beta milestone anywhere here.
Yeah, so they might be looking to delay a little bit, which honestly works in our favor. I think Gatekeeper's favor, because the longer this cap stays pending, right, and people don't have access to it directly through Kubernetes, but are aware it's coming, the longer it will be where people are like, I kind of need something to help transition. And I think we fit very nicely there. And also, if the code is more mature, we are in more of a space to actually offer something. So I'm like kind of okay if there's a delay. Damn it, I had some other thought around time. Oh yeah. The other thing that's interesting is someone's thinking of writing a shim, which would basically be a webhook that mocks these features. I wouldn't necessarily use the shim plus gatekeeper, right? I would just use gatekeeper directly for users. But in terms of like us doing development work against a reality where the API server is doing the enforcement, right? So we need to like generate objects and so on. The shim would definitely be helpful for that.
Sorry, the shim is for like Unitas or?
Well, it would be a webhook that acts like the KEP is supposed to act.
Oh, I see. This is the webhook version of the controller.
Exactly.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Interesting.
What is the why would you want to use that one?
So Gatekeeper would want to use it for development, right? Because there's going to be some point where the functionality is there, but not on a released version of K8s. And so it'll just be nice to have something versus like trying to build bleeding edge K8s or whatever.
I see. And can you use it standalone with like an older versions of Kubernetes?
That would be the idea. The shim doesn't currently exist. So I don't want to say a definitive answer, but that's the idea.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I would not use it for like production polyfilling in conjunction with Gatekeeper, right? Just because then you have two webhooks and everything's more brittle.
But you
And
could.
You could.
Yeah.
But Gatekeeper would also be able to execute a lot of cell code on its own, presumably. So
You just need like a big red label. Do not use this in production. Use at your own risk.
right. You use whatever you like. It's your production. Just, you know.
Don't tell me what to do.
This is a Simpsons thing. I'm a sign, not a cop.
And then on the Gatekeeper side, what are the next steps for this then?
So, what I'm hoping is that my PR that makes these private variables public gets merged within the week, and that if I try to vendor in the current version of K8s code, that controller runtime won't break again. and if both of those are true, then it will be easy for us to like spin up to start iterating on a driver that works on cell and trying to do the multi-driver work and constraint framework. Like right now, we could work off of a forked version of Kubernetes code. It seems like it would be a lot easier to coordinate if we didn't have to.
Yeah. This PR, right? I linked in the chat, the consumable one.
Yeah. I think the tests were green. I had some problems with, variable names. But yeah, looking
Cool. That's
just
great.
sweet on eyes. Sorry, go on.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so do we want to try to do, if this doesn't work out in terms of controller runtime, we could create some kind of a dummy engine, right? Something as simple as just always deny or always pass, depending on like the code we put in, deny or pass a string, and then use that to start modifying the constraint framework to support multiple engines. because there's problems there that we want to be prepped for, like if someone updates a constraint template to switch which engine code it's using, or you know, I'm not going to remember all of them off the top of my head, but there's a couple of places where we're gaining a lot of simplicity by assuming there's only one engine. So that would probably, if we do get difficulties, that might be my suggested next step for how to like try to do some parallel development. Strong objections to that, or
No.
Cool. Yeah, the last thing that I think is interesting, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's interesting, but cache data is interesting about multi-engine. Not relevant in the short term, right? The cell cap doesn't want to support referential type queries, certainly not in the beginning. But I could see it being us reaching the state where we do need some kind of caching that's accessible to both Rego and Cell. It would be nice if that didn't involve two separate caches for memory efficiency. It should be possible to create a storage object that Rego can read that's custom, right? I think it's all interface based, that we can also like provide our own accessor methods for whatever makes sense. I'm not suggesting that's work we do right now, but that's an interesting topic that I have an eye on that also seems to be related to this like long-standing problem we have not being able to iterate over cache data, which has been a limiting factor for if you change these sets of resources that get watched. Currently, we wipe the cache and repopulate it. We'd be able to be a little smarter about cache data if we did have iterable cache data, and that would unblock things like cache resources based off of namespace label, for instance. Because the problem currently would be if we tried to implement that, every time someone changed any label on any namespace, you'd need to wipe the cache, which is excessive.
Maybe next step is just, I guess, like you already have a design in mind, maybe
For which?
for the cache that you just talked about.
I have a dependency flow in mind, right? In that I don't want to work on that problem and multi-engines simultaneously because they are, they probably affect each other. And because the cell cap is more of an existential concern, I've been thinking about the cache problem for a while, but haven't, other than like the high level concerns of, oh, okay, these things are related, haven't tried to make anything like concrete, if that makes sense. I just, this is more just me throwing out, you know, stuff I can see on the horizon that is non-trivial and kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm sure this is not the last time we're going to talk about this. So yeah, I guess we'll talk about it when we get there, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, sounds like the multi-engine thing is the next step once your PRs merge, right? And then we can at least support both.
Yeah.
And I found why your PR on the frameworks is getting failing on the gatekeeper test, Max. You removed that file accidentally, I think.
Oh, we did?
The vendor manifest.co. Yeah, I added a comment there. So I think we need to re-add that one.
Oh, interesting. Did I remove it?
No,
Did
I removed it when I was doing the refactoring. Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering. I thought maybe like GoMod's behavior just had somehow changed, or the change in dependencies.
Yeah, I didn't realize that that was used for that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I did notice that that test started failing after your PR got merged, Sartash.
Yeah, that's why it's
Okay.
I linked to the file, so we can just copy paste it back. It doesn't really do anything. It's just as like underscore. Yeah.
Yeah, what we could do probably is just update the GoMod for constraint framework, and then we upgrade the version of Gatekeeper, or constraint framework Gatekeeper is importing, and as part of that, re-add the.
Yeah, I can re-add the file. Yeah.
Okay.
Why did you remove it?
I thought it was old. It wasn't used.
Oh.
That was like super old. It was like 4 years ago or something. And I was like, who needs this? Well, I mean, it's a good way to clean things up. Like remove something.
That's how you know you need it.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how Oren found that, because Oren is the one who figured out how to do all that weird kind of stuff. And it's like they're in the Go docs, but it's not obvious. Like he really knew his stuff. Yeah, maybe we put a comment in the file.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. It was just such a random file over there. Like, I don't know what it's doing.
Yeah,
and
and
good way to know. Now we know. It's
and does it have that like Go builds? Because
the plus build tools thing. Yeah.
So it turns out that plus build is deprecated. And now it's Go : build.
Oh yeah, I see.
I don't know why that's different, but you know, I guess that gives us an opportunity to refresh that.
Yeah, I'll add this file in all other comments so we can remember it.
Because people like to rename things.
Okay, so updating the linter, there was a whole bunch of like deprecated warnings around pointer.boolean ptr and string ptr has been deprecated. Now it's boolean.string and stuff. I get that it's cleaner. I'm not sure it was the best use of my time to find all instances of PTR.
Sometimes it fixes itself. There's like a -- fix thing. I did not know about that. So in the Golang CLint, you can pass in -- fix, and it fixes its own. I don't know if it applies to that one. It doesn't fix everything. It's just some of the stuff.
Interesting. It didn't. There was no prompt saying, "Hey, use --."
Oh, there's no prompt. You just have to know the argument. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
Right. Gotta go.
Oh,
Bye. Good to see y'all.
See ya.
Good to see you.